My name's Hugh McAdam, and I've been a rower since 2004. I've been a national team athlete and a coach. I love our sport and would do just about anything to get on the water. In fact, I have taken risks to get one more row in. I've seen other rowers do this as well with poor results. Accidents do happen. In this series of videos, we are going to demonstrate to you guys how to safely participate in our sport. Remember, safety starts with you.
Hi, I'm Ted Benford. I'm the Executive Director of Community Rowing. Our successful means of communication with regard to safety. So one is a boathouse emergency plan that's posted publicly for people to review. The other is making sure that the boathouse is sort of free of a lot of the predictable litter and detritus that can get in a boathouse, riggers on the floor, oars lying around, or other coaching equipment that might be an impediment to people's sort of ability to move around. Safety cards go in every launch, not just the head coach's launch. Litter's picked up everywhere, not just in the spaces where people walk. Riggers and oars and different pieces of equipment are organized in a way that everybody can see that this is where this particular item goes. That tends to be able to reinforce messaging as much as keep the boathouse sort of looking and feeling more stable and comfortable. So our staff obviously follow all of the guidelines around USRowing with regards to boating safety, safe sport, the background checks, as well as just following the general principles of the Positive Coaching Alliance. USRowing has, and different clubs, including ours, have some different very specific club-oriented safety and training protocols. For us, that includes a portion of training that has our coaches attending 3 different classes around mission, safety, and just sort of general programs and function and operations. But then also there's online training that we also have our staff do, about 15 hours of online guided coursework that they must complete in order to be certified to coach here. So for site maps or any map that includes hazards on the river, the thing that we looked at were safe harbors for coaches when they're on the water, whether it's another boat club or another organization that might have a dock, or a safe location on the river where if there's lightning or other concerns around sort of physical safety of athletes, that there's a place for them to go. The other thing that we do with that site map is also give our coaches information about how to be contacted if they call 911. So we're in a city, so the answer for a lot of safety concerns is to dial 911 first and call emergency services. One of the difficulties with rowing is that we're generally on waterways, and emergency services don't always have the best geolocation in terms of where crews and coaches are. So we put those instructions on our site maps as well.
I always check the boat before we go out on the water. So one of the first things that I do is I'm going to check the bow ball just down at the end to make sure that it's firmly in place. Another thing that I do, and the rowers also do this, but I do it as an extra precaution, is to make sure that the heel ties are fully tied for each seat. And I also will go along and check any hardware to make sure that nothing's loose so that a rigger doesn't fall off.
Here at CRI for swim tests, we make sure that swim tests are submitted before the program that they are participating in, whether it's an adult or a child. The basics that we have on the swim tests are 100-yard swim, and we have a 6-minute tread water. One of the ways that we make sure everyone is safe at the boathouse on the water is when we register for programs, every athlete outlines or parent outlines if someone is allergic to something, if they need to carry an EpiPen, if they carry an inhaler, and we use our best judgment to know where we should store it.
For us especially, the idea of creating a culture of safety is the most important part of making sure that our policies and procedures are followed, as well as just creating a safe environment for everybody who comes here, regardless of their level of experience or their background or their capacity to follow our safety guidelines.
name is Tom Rooks. I'm the Director of Safeguarding for USRowing. It's critical to assess the rowing conditions before and while we row. First, know your own waterway. What hazards are out there? Where are your safe havens if something happens? Where are the places you just shouldn't go? What weather, tide, or other conditions are safe on your waterway? Who will you call if you need help? It's critical to assess the conditions ahead of and during every row. Find an app, website, or other source that you're comfortable with and check it well ahead of every row. Be consistent on when and what tools you use. Check it again just before rowing to ensure nothing has changed. One example of a tool that's affordable and can come in really handy is I use a Kestrel. With it, I'm getting the wind speed, the wind direction, I'm getting the temperature, the humidity, the heat index, the wet bulb globe temp, and a lot of other factors that can help me determine if it's safe for me to still be out there or whether or not we should even go out there today. Is it going to rain? How hot or cold is it going to be? When is sunrise or when is sunset? Will there be fog out there? When you know what to expect, you can make a plan for whether or not to row, or what will be the best session you can have given the conditions. Once you know the likely conditions, make a plan that accounts for them. A strong crosswind may not be the best day to row pairs. And a really cold day probably isn't the best to do long interval pieces with breaks where the rowers aren't moving. If the current is moving fast, when we need to turn around to get home safely and on time. We are an outdoor sport, and failure to prepare for the weather in our plans usually makes for an ineffective and sometimes unsafe row. Every club or team should have known standards where they won't go out. For lightning, choose a number that makes sense for your area and your known weather, but never be on the water if lightning is going to be within 10 miles of you. Once you're out on the water, pay attention and reassess the conditions as you row. Has the wind shifted in direction or speed? One critical thing we need to do before we ever push off the dock or get off the beach, where are hazards in our area? Where are the tree stumps? Where are the submerged wrecked boats? Where are the bridges too low that we shouldn't go under? Where are the safe havens and egress points that EMS could come to pick you up if there were a problem with someone in your boat? A lot of our waterways have bridges, but they can present specific risks that you should be mindful of. Know which openings are safe for you to transit through and which ones are not. And never, ever stop near a bridge when the current's going to push you through it. You won't have any steering, it puts you at risk. Eddies of water coming off the back end of wherever the current's coming from can make your boat lose its steering and make your oars hard to control. So either stop well before the bridge or row through it.
My name's Akil Abdullah, Olympian, 5-time member of the U.S. national team, husband and father. So when it comes to safety, I don't take any chances. I'm always aware of my capabilities and the conditions. I can always run or erg. So can you. My safety kit starts with a waterproof container. This allows me a secure place to store my cell phone with emergency contacts. I always bring a sound-producing device. I bring a loud whistle. This can be important if fog rolls in or in case I need to get help. I put lights on the boat, certainly when I row in the dark. Making sound and having lights make you visible. You'll never know what conditions you'll face on the water. That's why I bring wrenches and extra hardware. I also bring first aid items. If conditions are questionable, I wear a PFD. I prefer an inflatable as it provides a streamlined profile. At the least, I take a life jacket with me in the boat.
Some of the considerations before you row you want to look at are going to be your wind speed, your wind direction, any storms that might be coming in, any tide changes you may have, or if you're on a river, what's the flow rate in your river? And of course, you need to know if there's lightning in your area. Heat and cold can be big variables as well. If you don't plan your session in a way that's designed to mitigate the risk of the weather you'll be facing, not only could you put people at risk, you're also not going to have a great practice.
Always sign out in the logbook and sign back in. Ideally, make sure someone knows your plan, knows that you are out. The dangers of rowing alone? What if something happens? If you are on the water alone, what can you do? Rowing with at least one other boat is a smart precaution. They can notify someone in case of an emergency. We call that the buddy system. If we can have a coach's launch nearby, that's the safest. The 4-oar system is used by many clubs. It means that the stability of 4 oars on the water is safer than 2. A 4, a quad, a double, or an 8 are safer than a single or a pair. A single is more likely to flip than a bigger boat. Know where safe havens are on your course. If an emergency arises or lightning is near, get off the water at a designated place and be able to explain where you are on the water. Have standard land reference points and know commonly used terms. For example, I am half a mile upriver from the boathouse. Unless help is nearby or the boat is not floatable, stay with the boat. If you can re-enter the boat, that is ideal. To re-enter a single, flip and recenter. Communicate and signal for help. If you cannot re-enter the boat safely, or if you still need help, call your emergency numbers. Yell or whistle for nearby help. Wave your arm or piece of clothing. The most important advice I can give you is don't take chances. Row smart, row safe.
Hot and cold weather rowing creates risks that can be mitigated with proper preparation and a plan for response. When it's hot, ensure you or those you lead are acclimated to the conditions, hydrated, have not been recently ill, and plan a session that accounts for the number of times the heart rate will be at its maximum and reduce the overall duration of the rowing session. If anyone exhibits signs of heat exhaustion like thirst, dizziness, heavy sweating, or nausea, move them to a cooler place, let them sip cool water, and if their symptoms don't improve, seek medical help. If anyone exhibits heat stroke symptoms like confusion, dizziness, or becomes unconscious, remove them from the conditions, call 911, and cool them with water or ice. Rowers can experience hypothermia in cold conditions. The conditions are made much worse if you're getting wet. If it's going to be a cold row, make a plan for it. If your boat is swamped or capsizes and you get it back to shore, bail all the water out that you can before attempting to lift it. The boat's going to be heavy, so have extra people help you if you can. When you lift it, just lift it to the waist and roll it enough to let the water pour out before trying to lift it up over your head. When you get the boat to the slings or to your boat rack, ensure you open any ports and try to remove all the water possible. If your boat runs aground, check for damage first. In any attempt to row out of the situation, go back exactly in the direction you came from. Any attempt to turn the boat will likely damage it or run you further aground. If it is safe to do so, and necessary, have rowers get out of the boat where it ran aground to refloat it, push it out, and get back in. Do not use the oars to force the boat off. If someone is having a medical emergency, stop rowing. Put a life jacket on them, and if it's an inflatable, inflate it. In a team boat, have another rower stabilize them so they can't fall out of the boat. Have a communications plan. If it's your phone, save the emergency contacts you'll need, like local EMS. If it's a VHF marine radio, know what channels you'll monitor and how to properly communicate on a VHF radio. As soon as safely possible, have a launch remove them from the boat and take them to a safe haven for treatment. If possible, have another person beside the driver of the launch so they can assist the injured person. If you row long enough, often enough, you or someone you know will end up in the water. This can be from capsizing, flipping, swamping, or catching a really bad crab. When it happens, if you're alone, as soon as you surface, stay with the boat. If you're with others, account for everyone, and if anyone is injured, help whoever is most at risk while staying with the boat. If you're operating in cold water, the risk of which is greater at 60 degrees and colder, cold water shock can be deadly. When your body is suddenly submerged in cold water, it creates a rush of adrenaline and a spike in your heart rate. This can lead to a gasping reflex, rush decisions, and panic. If you find yourself in cold water, once you surface, slow down. Before attempting to get back in your boat, make a plan, get control of your breathing, calm your heart rate, and execute your plan. Decide how many attempts you'll give yourself before you put on a life jacket and swim on or with the boat. If you cannot get back in the boat, put on flotation, call for help if you can, and wait for it. If you cannot get in the boat immediately, put on a life jacket if you have one. And if it's an inflatable, inflate it. Even with a life jacket on, stay with your boat. Ensure you have effective supervision of your athletes. Keep them at a safe distance. This includes not being too close or directly behind them, but also not being too far away from your boats. If you can't see them, you can't save them. When there are rowers in the water, if you're driving a safety launch, account for all of the rowers before approaching them. If anyone is hurt, approach them and get them out of the water. Always approach a person in the water, bow first while driving into the prevailing conditions. Once you're close enough to assist them, or if they are able to get to you, ensure your engine is in neutral or turned off. A conscious, uninjured rower will be fine once they are with your launch, so you can get them aboard methodically. Don't hurry, as you could injure them or capsize your own boat if you rush. Catching a crab can range from just an inconvenient moment to an ejection. It's a term for when a blade of your oar gets stuck in the water. If you can't immediately recover the blade when it happens, stop rowing, push down on the handle, and get the blade out. If you can't do this quickly, ask the rest of the boat to stop rowing to take the pressure off the blade, extract it, check for damage to the rigger and boat. Collisions are also common in rowing. If you think the risk of collision is imminent, call out to your crew and the other crew or other boater loudly and clearly. If the collision cannot be avoided, stop rowing so the speed of the boats is less upon impact. If the boat and rowers are uninjured, push away from the other boat. Stress and emotions are often high when this occurs, so be direct, but be professional in a crisis, and you'll create the safest outcome for everyone involved. After a collision, check for damage to the equipment before you continue rowing. As an outdoor water sport, situations are going to occur that require a fast, effective response so we can all stay safe. When we row safely, we enjoy all the amazing lessons and experiences our sport offers.
Hi, my name is Rachel Friedman, and I learned to row and cox with Capital Rowing Club here in Washington, D.C. back in 2001. Before launching, it's really important for coxswains to be aware of the weather, changing conditions, and what's happening with the water. So watch for wind, watch for lightning, and watch for chop. You also really need to be aware of hazards, and that could be floating debris, it could be sandbars, and it could be other crews out on the water. Let's say you're either a brand new coxswain or new to a specific body of water. How do you learn the traffic pattern and the hazards that are there? You're definitely going to talk to your coaches. You'll want to talk to other coxswains and pay attention to any sort of course map that your coaches provide. I think it's a really great idea also to check out Google Maps and zoom in on your body of water and see what's around. See if there are turns or bridges or any sort of hazards that might be out there, like piers. There are a few key things that every coxswain should bring in the boat with them. And I start with a dry bag. I like this one because it's little, it's low profile, and I wear it around my waist and it's comfortable in the boat. I bring my cell phone in case of emergency. And then obviously we need our Cox box, so I'll grab that. And then for safety, we have a lanyard with everything that you might want on it for essentials. So we have wrenches, we have a glow stick, and everybody's favorites, we have washers, wing nuts, some spacers. Everybody needs those during practice. And it's really important also to have a whistle. And you're gonna want this in case of emergency if you're within hailing distance of another boat. Also, you're gonna want a PFD, a personal flotation device. It is recommended by USRowing, and my club adheres to these standards, is we use a horse collar PFD. Put it on, click it on. You want to make sure everything's tight and it's comfortable. If you need to, in emergency, you can pull this red tab.
I usually would be in charge of the logbook. Each time we go out on the water, I would sign us out, and then as we come back in, I'd also sign in just to make sure that we get in safely. Just making sure that you have proper clothing, I would say, is most important because it stinks when you are cold and coxing. So making sure you're wearing proper layers, sometimes a survival suit, as we said.
Early on when Sophie was starting to cox, it was a little bit of like me coxing from the launch and allowing her to just kind of pick it up. One of the things that I really like to stress is language, language, language. If everybody knows what words mean and what we're trying to say, it goes a whole lot smoother. So we started with the basics. You know, your check down, your row side, how to call out numbers, way enough. I kind of differentiate way enough and let it run, so they kind of know what those two mean. Like way enough means let's stop the boat. It has to stop right now. Let it run can be, all right, we're finished with the length, and you can kind of let it cool off.
So there are a handful of pretty important commands for coxswains to know when it comes to keeping your crew safe. One of them is the simple heads up. And that is something that I would use if we're approaching another crew, but there's really no danger. We just want them to know that we're coming. Hey coxswain, heads up, I'm on your starboard. If you need to ask your crew to stop whatever you're doing, such as rowing or a drill, you're gonna ask them to weigh enough. If you need them to stop the boat, you can ask them to check it down, and that's turning the blades so they're at about a 45-degree angle and dragging on the water. That slows down or stops the boat from moving forward or backward. And if you have only one side of the boat check their blades, that results in a turn to that side. When you turn and cross, it's common to turn your boat 90 degrees perpendicular to the river, take it directly straight across, and get as far as your coach has asked you to, weigh enough, and make another 90-degree perpendicular turn so you're heading in the right direction. If you need the boat to absolutely stop moving, you're going to ask your crew to hold water. You can also ask them to hold water if the boat's already stopped and you just want to keep the boat from drifting. Holding water means squaring the blades and placing them in the water while the boat is stopped. So we've talked about all of the ways to be safe around the boathouse, around the boat, in the boat, and with your crew. And we need to keep them safe because they're people that we love, we care about, and that we want to get out on the water with day after day after day, race with throughout the season, and hopefully have them around for a long time to keep racing with throughout the years.
An important role for your safety committee or your float officer are to create guidelines for safety on the water for your members and athletes. It's always good to start with the USRowing safety checklist, which can be found on the USRowing website.
Our approach to safety really focuses on the individual safety that all of our coaching staff and our participants abide by. And so what that means is that for us, everybody's responsible for safety.
Not only do you need to consider exterior security, but you need to also consider how you're going to access your space, as well as monitor what's going on within that space.
Docks are a challenge to every boat club, regardless of size or the age of the boat club. They require constant maintenance and upkeep, and one of the things that's important is that club members know that they can tell the club that there are nails sticking up, or in our case, we have wooden docks, so the wood is starting to go. And keeping up on that stuff is really, really important for both safety as well as club morale. You can see here we have a dock that provides people in wheelchairs the opportunity to safely get on the dock and get off. We also use single-sided friction tape to make sure that in the areas where they're slippery, this part of the dock is metal, that we're using the appropriate stuff to make sure people don't slip. Wakeless launches tend to come with an electrical system, so the lights are functioning, safe place to store the gas tank, easy access to the kill switch as well. And then in addition to that, we have life jacket bags in every launch as well as a paddle. And I'll give you a sense of what that includes. So this is a life jacket bag. What's in there is basically flotational life jackets. But in addition to that, what we include in there is about, I think it's 2.5 to 3 inch webbing that is included in every bag, so that if there's an athlete who's incapacitated or needs help getting back into the boat or back into the launch, they can use that webbing to be able to support the athlete getting out of the water. In addition to that is a tow rope, so the coaches can tow each other if need be, if a launch goes down. And then obviously also in the launch is a paddle. So that's required equipment in every launch as well. One thing that also we have for our club is information that's bolted onto the consoles of our coaching launches. And that information includes other locations along the river where there's a safe form of egress or shelter. Really important for us is that emergency services don't always know where we are, or we might have a coach who's not aware of where they are on the river relative to giving emergency services accurate information. So this card includes the appropriate sort of nomenclature or address that 911 would be able to send emergency crews to.
Your launch is your primary safety tool. Every launch has a maximum capacity for people and equipment. Do not overload your launch. It is very likely you'll coach more people than your launch can rescue all at once. Have a plan for how you'll assist them. Bring enough life jackets for at least the largest boat you are coaching, if you cannot bring one for everybody. My job at USRowing, and the job of the team I work with, is to continually just try to do better as a form of respect and appreciation for all that participate in this thing we love.